Good afternoon, Mark and Steve. How are you guys doing today?
Howdy. Good.
Very good.
Awesome. So, guys, we are back with another behind the scenes of some of our hot topics blogs. The most recent blogs we've been doing have a lot of them have been based around Nielsen's new 3-minute rule, which was implemented back in January. And we released several of them. We did a podcast episode for you guys as well. Hopefully, you've had a chance to watch that on our YouTube channel. So, as promised, we're following up here with a little bit of a different look at the 3-minute rule. Obviously, now we have January, February, and March data behind us. We're going to have April data coming out soon, too, right? Really soon, next week. So, given that we had all the new data, we wanted to do a little bit of a different dive into it and change the parameters around a little bit to see how that would affect our findings. We also knew that some other people in the industry were looking at this data differently. So we said, hey, how can we look at it and change that up a bit for you guys and present our content to you that way. So that's what we've done in our latest blogs. And today we're going to do a little behind the scenes talk about that. Marc, can you give us a little bit of background on sort of when we decided to do this particular study, what the thinking was as far as how we're looking at the data?
Sure. I mean, what everybody needs to keep in mind is the most appropriate way to try and compare the impact of the 5-minute rule to the 3-minute rule would be looking at the same survey measured with the 5 minutes and measured with the 3 minutes. That was available last May when Nielsen was doing the test, but it has not been made available, and I don't think it can be made available for anything since the implementation in January. So what we're doing now is comparing one survey to a prior survey, and everybody knows the ratings change every survey. So it changes whether there's a 3-minute and a 5-minute rule change, or it changes because the listening changes, or the panel changes, or the situations in each market change. So what we decided to do, we saw some comparisons of fall to winter, the fall 2024, which is the 5-minute, to the winter 2025, which is 3 minutes. So we decided to try to remove some of the seasonality and go back and compare winter 2024 to winter 2025.
Right.
And thanks to, with the help of people at XTRENDS,
thank you,
we're
XTRENDS,
processing tens of thousands of data points here. We were able to organize all this data and come up with some useful and, in some cases, very interesting results.
Yeah. And thank you for reiterating that, Marc. We want to give our applause to our friends at XTRENDS because, as Marc said, without this would not be possible. This is a lot of numbers, a lot of data to dig into, and without them, it's just very difficult. It would be impossible to comprehend. So thank you so much for working with us on that, and we can bring you these findings to our audience. So I know Steve, our usual blog writer, he does such a great job on all our blogs, has written actually 2 separate blogs. The first one was released last week, and the second one was released today. Hopefully you guys had a chance to check it out, all based on this study. I wanted to have you share some of the findings that you highlighted in the first blog. And Marc will share as well on the screen the chart that we created, or that we have that accompanies the blog, so you guys can get a visual of it as well as Steve's sort of talking through and see what we found.
Well, let's dovetail on what Marc said. That winter to fall to winter data that we had seen was all 6+, right?
Right. Okay.
We did 25, 54, 18 to 49, both adults, men, and women. So we have 6 demos worth of data across all day parts. Because while 6+ is nice, I mean, it is what it is, right? It's the vanity demo. And what we found was, first off, to no one's surprise, the metric that's affected most by the 3-minute rule is time spent listening, or AWTE in PPM world, which makes sense.
Right.
You're going to get more time spent because of those 3-minute occasions than you would under the 5-minute rule. Cume would not be affected as much. I think, while no one promised us anything as far as what the increases would be, there was certainly a feeling that the average person's the PUM would go up by 25%. Didn't see that winter to winter. 15% is kind of the outlier. Everything was kind of between like 10 and 15%. Varied by day part, varied by demo. We saw that there wasn't a lot of difference in increases between 18 to 49 and 25-54. They were both 13 and change, I think. There was a significantly larger difference between women 25-54 than men. Not sure what that means. Do women have more, lighter listening occasions?
Maybe in the car, driving around, something like that, with transporting. Yeah.
Again, and it's only 1/4 for the data, so we're still trying to get our hands around it. I mean, it's something. We also see that midday was one of the least improved day parts
with the change.
Yeah, from the
going
change
from 5 to 3. Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of interesting. But and then we say this in the blog. At the end of the day, this is 48 of the 49 ppm markets, right? So this is a global perspective of what happened with the change. Every market is different. I mean, Nielsen pointed that out when they did the winter to fall to winter comparison. Phoenix is through the roof, and some markets barely move the needle.
Right. Very different. A lot, and we pointed that out as well, I think, in our last episode, that there was just a lot of difference between markets, and that might not all be, it's like you said, it's not all based on the 3-minute rule. There's other factors at play in there.
Well, yeah, I mean, winter 24 was different than winter 25, right?
Yeah.
Weather was different, situations were different. And as Marc pointed out, the panel was different in every market. You didn't have 100. I mean, there wasn't whatever number of meters were in your market. All those people weren't there a year later.
Right.
Right. And you could probably make a case for a significant proportion of them weren't. So it's apples-ish to apples-ish, I think we said. But I think it at the end of the day, it is still good news for radio, right? I mean, It's still good news radio. We are showing that more listening is being captured, not being created, being captured.
It was already there.
This was already there. It's the value added is now reality.
Awesome. Yeah. And
I would say that it's being included now.
Yeah.
It was there. It was being captured, but now it's being included.
Right, right. And if you guys haven't had a chance to check out our first episode, and Marc and I also recorded a separate video just talking about the implications of, how this affects sales teams with advertisers and agencies with the buys and all that. So really important stuff to consider there with the change too. So make sure you check out those videos if you haven't. So we talked about this chart that we displayed on the blog, some of the findings. Then you guys also decided to take a peek at formats, right? So we're going to show you guys a different chart, and Steve's second blog focused on what we saw with the different formats. Which, have we seen anybody else look at it this way? I can't remember. You guys will have to remind me. I don't think, Steve.
I don't think I mean, with the original presentation from Nielsen that did the May to May comparison did break it down by formats.
Okay.
But this is a little bit more detailed. We just focused on 1849, 25-54 total week.
Okay.
We didn't want to barrage everybody.
So just the two demos,
Totally.
No 6+, none of that. We just these two demos focused just to kind of hone in and really see what the patterns look like here.
I mean, some of the things, like, for example, News Talk had one of the biggest gains. Well, no surprise. Winter of 2024, you had a new administration come in.
Yes,
I mean, the whole
political.
politics of America had changed. So you had that. I thought the most interesting thing, Marc and I have talked about this, was when Nielsen did the fall to winter, they said that sports was the only format that declined. And as we point out in the blog, I mean, sports radio especially is very season affected.
Seasonal, yeah.
If you look at winter to winter, it's up. Not as much as News Talk, but it's up.
Yeah.
It's definitely up. And the formats that I thought was interesting that didn't get as much of a bump year over year, urban and country.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised that both of those formats didn't see I mean, they were up, Don't get me wrong, it's everything's relative, you know. I mean, they're still up, 12, 13, 14%,
Right.
which, we'll always take that kind of increase, but it wasn't quite as dramatic as certainly what was sports, almost 40%, 35%. I mean, news talk was like 35%.
Now, would that suggest that, I mean, like potentially people like these formats, there's not as many instances of like shorter listening durations?
I would say there's several possible causes. And again, because we're not looking at apples to apples, meaning winter 2025 to winter 2025, 5 minutes versus 3 minutes. We're looking at winter 2024, 5 minutes to winter 2025, 3 minutes.
Right.
So
right.
actual listening could have changed.
In that time, yeah.
There could be more people, like you said, Bethany, that in these formats that have or fewer in the case of urban and country that didn't go up as
Right.
much, fewer 3 minute or 4 minute entries. So there weren't as many entries to help raise the the AQH persons from a year ago to now. But it's probably a combination of all the above.
So
Yeah,
why
I
did
thought
we choose to look at, so I see we chose to look at AQH persons and CUME persons, and then obviously AWTE or TSL. Were there other estimates we could have included as well? I think we pared it down, Steve, right to this is what we're
Right.
going to show.
Yeah, I mean, we could have done ratings points, but we wanted to keep it to this. What did kind of jump out at me, and I think it is instructive of the seasonality and how radio listening is affected by events. That if you looked at what we did before, Cume was up very little when you just looked at demos and day parts. You get into the formats, you see some pretty big Cume jumps. I mean, News Talk's up 20% in Cume year over.
Yeah.
That's massive. Well, it makes sense, right? We had an inauguration. We had all these new things happening in the country in winter of 25 that didn't happen in 24. So that makes sense.
It makes sense, meaning that the actual listening
Right.
Cume went up,
Yeah.
as opposed to it going up because of the change to the 3 minute rule.
I would agree with that. Absolutely, I would agree with that. Yeah. I think what this provides right now for everybody is it's kind of a nice baseline for your format. So you could sit there and go, okay, when 48 of the 49 markets, AC went up about 15% with 18 of 49, how did I do? Did I outpace that? Am I underpacing that? Why? And then really start digging into your numbers to find out why that happened. Again, these are not set in stone, but this is as close to a good comparison I think that we could generate.
Yeah. And like you said, Steve, we would advise, people at the individual market level use this sort of as a guide, but dig in more as far as what's going on in your markets, because some of it could be affected, could be because of the 3 minute rule, and some of it is, but then there's also other things. So you got to sort of really focus on those specific things on the market level, and then you're able to figure out what decisions or changes, if any, could be made. So yeah, this, I think it's interesting as well because other people have shown this in different ways, as we talked about, but we wanted to do something a little bit outside of what we had seen to give you guys a different perspective. And that's what we're always trying to do at Research Director with the data when we share content with you, show you something you haven't seen and heard and think about things in a different way. So thanks so much, guys, for sharing those charts. I guess one final question I have is, so what now? What next? So we've done, we've looked at when the first month of data came out, that was, I think, the most exciting. We were all kind of like, what's going to happen? And then Steve, you sort of said, wait, beware. We got to wait for more data to come out. And when we did, and so now we've looked at data, having 3 books behind us. What's next? How long does this go on in the sense of looking at it and analyzing it? That makes sense. What's going to happen going forward?
Well, I think we still want to look at this on a quarter by quarter basis for the rest of the year because every quarter is different. I mean, Q2 tends to see an increase in radio listening just because of lifestyle, right? People are out on the road more. Vacation season's coming, so you're going to see more in-car listening. So you're going to see that go up. How much does it go up thanks to the 3-minute change. I think that's worth looking at. I think it's worth looking at it quarter by quarter for the entire year, because once once the holiday book comes out for 2025, it's all, it's all the new reality. There's no reveals to have.
And I think one thing that we should offer to anybody that's interested is if you have a specific question
Yeah.
about a specific demo or a specific day part or a specific format, we have all of the data and it can be broken out and sliced and diced 150,000 different ways.
Amazing.
So please reach out to us. We're happy to discuss that with anybody who's interested in trying to figure out how does their result compare to the norms that we're trying to put together here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Marc. This has been fun, guys. I always enjoy getting together, and obviously the 3-minute rule has been a big thing this year. As Steve said, it will continue to be. So if you guys listening have any feedback or any other questions, Marc, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have something to add?
Well, I just thought of one more thing because you asked what's coming up.
Yes.
So obviously all the local markets have as of today, Jan, Feb, and March, and pretty soon we'll have the April data. But the next really big thing in the radio world is when the nationwide data comes out in September.
Okay.
And that'll be based on the April, May, June survey period. And that's what's going to affect national and network because all the rates are set off of that nationwide data. Right now, the nationwide that's being used was based on October, November, December, which was still the 5-minute rule.
Yep.
So that's the next big thing for our industry is what do those numbers show when they come out, again, based on April, May, June, and they come out in September.
Okay,
Yeah,
so those will all be 3-minute. That'll all be 100% the 3-minute rule as opposed to last year's, which was nothing of the 3-minute rule.
I mean, I think the good news is based on what we've seen so far, we can expect an increase. The question is, what increase? How big?
How much? Yeah.
And can we convert that into additional revenue for the industry or into a situation where the cost per thousands are lower now? So radio is more competitive with the other media that it is trying to fight out on the street.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before, Marc, and thanks for touching on that. That's something that a lot of people have, not just us, right? We've heard other people say that this could potentially make radio more competitive next to other media, which is a hot thing right now. And you look at a lot of the studies that are coming out in the trades and things people are saying, making people understand that the power of radio is still there, even though you have all these other forms of media to choose from now, rather than just radio. So we will, good thing you mentioned that about the national data. We will circle back and have another discussion at that time because it's important to look at that since it's going to be affecting a lot of the decisions on the, like you said, the buying side, the agency side and stuff like that. So we'll come back to you at that time, if not sooner. If you guys want to read the full blogs, I'll include the links for both of the blogs in the description of this video. And as I always say, if you have any questions or feedback, or you want us to look at anything else related to this topic or another topic, we're happy to do it. We love your feedback and your ideas. So leave them in the comments or check out our website, contact us, and let us know what you'd like us to address next. And we'll be happy to do it. Thank you, Steve and Marc, for your time today. And
to our friends at XTRENDS.
XTRENDS, you rock, XTRENDS.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for helping us out here.
XTRENDS.
And we appreciate your collaboration as always. So until next time, guys, have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.